Hi there folks, welcome to the latest episode of my podcast, and in this podcast we're going to look at some pretty scary information taken from contracts with Pfizer and governments around the world, which will show some things that you're probably not happy about with the British government and the Scottish Parliament, if you've got memories of what happened through COVID. So, introduce my guest. You introduce yourself, tell us who you are, a bit about what you do, and then we'll talk about the topic.
Okay, Craig, I'm Murray Phillips, and I'm what's known as an activist here. I'm a guy that just basically wants the truth, pretty much like everybody else. There's been a lot of things going on in the past 4 years in particular, and it's just it's not the truth we're getting, basically. So I'm a guy that made a point of going and knocking heads with other people where things didn't resonate with us, and we knew there was a lot of things that just didn't make sense, and we went and set about tasks of trying to find out the truth of the matter of what's been going on. About COVID in particular, aye.
Okay. So, without getting into any conspiracy theories, because we've not got a conspiracy theory channel, what I deal with is the truth. And every video we've ever put out, we just talk about the truth, put out facts. Now, there might be things that I think might go on if I'm talking about anything with a government or politicians, but if I can't prove it, if it's not already factual, we don't go there. So
100%.
we don't want to go and, start talking about what was the virus, was there a virus or that nonsense. I don't know, right? So we've not got information in front of me. So you contacted me, we spoke up at the Edinburgh, up at the Holyrood protest. We've had a couple of chats since then, Murray. Now, you've got some documents that you've brought to share with me today. Do you want to give us a wee brief explanation of what they are and where they came by?
These contracts came from a colleague of mine that does a lot of good work down south the border, Matt Sexton. The guy's an ex-constable, and he's a guy, as far as I'm concerned, with a lot of integrity. And he's worked his balls off the past 4 years to reveal the truth about the corruption that's going on. So that's where I've got these documents, basically the Albanian, Brazilian and the South African contract from the manufacturers, Pfizer, of these these mRNA, they're not even vaccines, they're mRNA gene therapies.
Now, just something I need to put out there because it's quite important. You're quite happy that these are not being stolen documents, they've been got through legal and lawful means, are no stolen for governments, nobody's went into a file and pulled them. And I think at least two of them I know personally are out in the public domain.
Yeah, they are.
And I think, were you telling me earlier, the South African one, the government there, done what the UK government and the Scottish government have done in trying to protect the integrity of the contract by saying you're not getting them, but through a court battles in South Africa, the South African courts eventually agreed to release them to the public. So they've not been stolen. Nobody's hacked into the computer to get them. And talk me through them. What did you see when you first seen them? What got your juices flowing with this?
What got my juices flowing, Craig, was the fact that for the last few years, as everybody knows, when you watch the television, is that our First Minister and the health officials, the health ministers and stuff, every night the news, they were talking about coercing people into taking these things, that they were safe and effective. You can clearly see in that contract, Craig, it's clear as day there. It states that they do not know the efficacy of these things. And you've got it in front of you there if you want to show the viewers.
Yeah. So your gripe is that in Scotland every night Nicola was on the telly, and then the boy Leach was on the telly, and Humza when he was the health minister. They were telling us these vaccines are safe, you need to go and get them. And that was probably, to be fair, not the only government. I mean, the UK government probably doing similar. And now there have been people made attempts to get the documents, the contracts for the UK and the Scottish government. And what's happened to them?
Well, it looks to me, Craig, as if they're hiding evidence. Redacted by the looks of things.
People have been asking through FOIs for the government and the Scottish government to release the contracts that they've signed. Is that right? And they're getting redacted versions back.
Yeah, it looks like it, aye.
So one thing I need to say is the three documents that you've shown me, they're identical.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
And you've got documents here from Brazil, Albania, and you've shown me the South African ones on a digital format. Now, I think it's fair to say that if these are 3 countries spread around the world, they're 3 different.
I know it's coming here.
They're for 3 different continents. I think it's probably, and they're all at the same time, they're all March 21.
Reasonable cause coming.
I think it's fair to assume that they're probably the same Pfizer documents for everybody, because I know it's a contract, and sometimes when you open these things up and there's 66 pages, they can look a wee bit off-worrying, but it's just a contract. It's an order form at the end of the day. If you get into the old, travel agents and you fill out an order form for your holiday, it'd be the same one in every one. If you're going to buy a car,
absolutely,
you buy a, and it's the same contract.
Absolutely.
So there's a few, there are a few things now. The thing that you've drawn my attention to is, and I'll put this up on the screen when we're editing it, purchaser acknowledgement. And it's 5.5 in the document, and it's 5.5, and this one just happens to be the Albanian one, and it's 5.5 in the Brazilian one, and it's 5.5 in the South
African one.
It's funny, right? I'll read it out. Purchaser acknowledges that the vaccine and materials related to the vaccine and their components and constituent materials have been rapidly developed due to the emergency circumstances of COVID-19 pandemic and will continue to be studied after provision of the vaccine to the purchaser under this agreement. So right away, before we go into the right scary bit, what that tells me, reading it, is they're still developing it. It's not a finished product.
Absolutely.
Then the scary part of 5.5. Purchasers, i.e. the governments, further acknowledges that the long-term effects and efficacy. That word I can't say. Which basically means efficiency of the vaccine are not currently known, and there may be adverse effects of the vaccine that are not currently known. That's a bit scary.
Absolutely it is.
So, now, we cannot say, I need to just reiterate this, we can't say 100% that the Scottish and the UK government have got the exact same contracts, but I think it's fair to assume that the 3 that have been presented for around the world are
from
identical.
the same manufacturer, let's reiterate.
Yeah. So, the documents that are being protected by the UK and the Scottish government, the likelihood, I think it's fair to assume. Anybody using common sense and logic would suggest that says the same. So what does that say to you?
Well, it comes across similar to your man, Mr. Plausible Deniability, that wanted to get rid of the WhatsApp messages, the senior advisor in the Scottish Government that we're supposed to trust. It says the same, Craig, without a shadow of a doubt, that they're trying to cover up basically things that can be used as evidence against them.
Well, I think it's even more basic than that. They've signed these documents using assumption that it's the same document, that they knew when they took these on, which they're all dated around about the same time, March 21, the person selling them is basically saying, we don't know how effective they are, we don't know the long-term effects, and we don't even know if there'll be any adverse effects.
That's what makes it so scary. And we're sitting here kind of chuckling, but I'm actually fuming.
No, I'm laughing at the situation, the seriousness. But, so, each night on the TV when we turned on our telly, there's nothing else to do.
Every night for long and weary. How long did that go on for? Would they suffer that? Every night, there were shots each announcing this, coerced into taking this thing. Safe and effective. Safe and effective. That was a mantra. Safe and effective. Unbelievable.
Aye. Now, the only way we could possibly put the British public and the Scottish public in particular mind to rest is if the UK or the Scottish Government would release their version of the Pfizer.
Yep.
And we can check what 5.5 says.
And if there's bits missing.
Well, that's the thing. See if you redact any part of a document, then people start second guessing. And there's conspiracy theories, and there are probability based on common sense and logic. This isn't a conspiracy theory.
Absolutely none of the kind.
This is a concern based on common sense and logic, because There is nothing that I would say that until up to now that you've presented me 3 contracts for different places around the world, all at the same time as when the British and the Scottish ones were signed, all identical and all saying the exact same thing. So until the British or the Scottish government come out and say, well, there's our contract and it says something different, we can only assume. And I don't think we're being conspiracy theorists here.
Oh, far from it.
Do you know what I mean? Because you've got, well, why would it not? Why would Pfizer, if they're using these contracts which look as if it's a worldwide
Everyone's got the same.
Yeah. Why would you suddenly turn up at Holyrood or Westminster and say, do you know what? We're going to give you something different? Because what they're saying is that right now, and this is another key fact that isn't debatable, what they're saying in these contracts is right now, we don't know the long-term effects and the efficiencies and if there's any adverse effects.
Yeah.
So if this is what Pfizer are saying to Albania, Brazil, South Africa in March 21, why would they say anything different to the UK government in March 21?
Precisely. And through the passage of time, Craig, through the yellow card reporting scheme, we can see clearly the reactions to these things. So that's more evidence regarding.
Yeah, I mean, what happens after the event? You know, the world could explode after the event. But in March 21, Pfizer are telling these countries, we don't know much about this drug. So if UK, Scotland signed at the same time, Pfizer couldn't tell them anything different. Because let's just say you're Pfizer, right? And you're writing up this contract. And 2 weeks later, you find out that they are safe. You can say the efficiency is 34.5%. You could say things like the adverse effects are 2 to 1,000. If you had that data, you would have it in there.
Absolutely.
So unless the British bought them 6 months later, which they didn't, where new things came to light, you would imagine that if Pfizer knew back then the efficiencies, etc., they would have them in all their contracts.
100%.
You're not going to give 2 different contracts, are you? What do you think should happen next?
There's got to be serious inquiries about this, because if they're going on that television and having short seats at telling the general public that these things are safe and effective when the original documents are telling you clearly different, there's got to be something done about it. But people need to know this, Craig, and that's where I got a hoodie at Holyrood to tell you about what I had in my possession. That this is massive, because I believe the general public are not aware of a lot of things that go on. And again, there's been a lot of other things that we can talk about. Obviously, not the new. We're dealing with this specifically, but what I'm suggesting is this is coming for the same people that's broken the trust of the general public in countless occasions. And I think people know what I'm referring to without getting into.
Well, the thing that happens is if you and I have now discussed things for a fortnight, 3 weeks, right? And until then, right up to now, I believe you, I trust you, you're going to be sitting in front of my podcast, and I think obviously that's got to be the same, or you're going to be sitting here sharing this time.
Right. Was awesome.
No, what I'm saying to you though is, right, so right now you and I are comfortable with each other, I trust you, you trust me, right? But say 6 weeks from now, you found out something I told you was a lie, you would then question everything I ever told you, am I right? Right. So what I'm saying is, if this comes to pass that the Scottish Government and the UK Government have got the same contracts and they've been sitting every night coming into their living rooms telling us to go and get these things because they're safe and it's the best thing you can do, then you can't really trust them about much else, because this is your life you're talking about here.
Absolutely.
You know, wee things like lying about tax and lying about transgender and lying about stuff like, you know, the climate.
That's a whole different level.
Aye. So if you lie about this, if it comes to pass that we can get proof, now, this would be easy to shoot down. Just release the document. But until that document's released now, I can only apply common sense and logic. And that would suggest to me that in March 2021, anybody around the world that's doing a deal with Pfizer is given the same contract as, what's that one, Brazil, the same contract as Albania, and the same contract as South Africa that you showed me on your
why would they give a different nation a different contract, Craig?
Well, you would kind of think as well, though, see this 5.5 section in the contract, you would kind of guess that that's there to protect Pfizer. So do they not want the same protection of the UK government? Now, if they genuinely didn't know, that's another argument, Did Pfizer know how efficient it was? Did Pfizer know if there was any side effects? Did Pfizer know any of the stuff that they're saying they didn't know? That's a different argument. And it's actually irrelevant because the UK and the Scottish Government have probably signed the same thing, right? But it's highlighting basically this agreement that Pfizer are saying, we don't know how it will be. We don't know if it will actually work. We don't know if there's any long-term effects. And we don't know if there'll be any adverse effects. And the British government and the Scottish government have probably been given and signed the exact same document. And this is bloody scary, mate. So, talking about this and this alone, you as a campaigner, an activist, as you describe yourself, what do you do next with this, and only this information? Know about other things that you've got to go?
I've already been with a direct action team, Craig, to divisional headquarters, Police Scotland, Glasgow, Stewart Street, and we've sat down with them in a professional meeting in an office because I told them I was not prepared to be standing at a reception area.
I've seen it.
Right, so therefore I required to have a bit of time to sit down and raise concerns as being members of the general public that there's serious implications, serious, which we deem as could be crimes here against the people, where these people are giving out misinformation, misleading information that could be causing loss of lives, harms and injuries, or crimes in law. And the police is the place you go to when you're reporting things that you could be deemed as crimes.
The only thing, and again, because we need to try and show balance, right? That doesn't mean I don't disbelieve or I believe anything, but I need to try and show balance. The only thing that could, try to think, choose my words wisely here, justify them doing it, is if evidence came out later that was contradictory and actually said, do you know what, there isn't any long-term effects, do you know what, they are quite efficient, and do you know what, there are no adverse effects. But I don't think that ever happened, right? So what your suggestion is then, people that have made decisions have done them knowing that there was risks involved.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, if you, again, you cross a road, there's risk, right? So you couldn't cross a road, get knocked down, and then claim the green cross code guy because, he didn't tell you how to do it properly. So there's risk involved in everything, and you need to understand that. But I can't remember at any point anybody standing in Holyrood on the daily things saying, by the way, there's a chance these might know, and by the way, Pfizer aren't sure how efficient they are, and Pfizer aren't sure if there's any long-term effects. There was none of that. Whereas that's a duty of care to the public, is it not?
I've got these health ministers on record, on video, Craig, stating clearly, telling the general public to go and take these, that they were going for theirs, and they totally trust them. I've got them on video here, and they can be used as evidence against them if this works out to be the way I think it's going here.
So, have you lodged a complaint at this point?
You don't lodge a complaint, Craig. This is where my knowledge comes in regarding, we don't complain about anything. You make verified claims, right? So you make a claim, and what we've done is we've gave Police Scotland an indication of where we're going. We've given them a flavour of what we're about to, the claims we're going to be making. But there's a problem here, and that is regarding Police Scotland. There's seemingly been an instruction given from Assistant Chief Constable, and I'm not going to name the guy because, as far as I'm concerned, this is a violation of we the people's rights, and it's a violation of these guys' their oath of office, where these guys swear an oath to uphold the law and to serve and protect the people. And when you're coming away with stuff like this here, the evidence we're going to provide them with, if they're denying people the opportunity to report things like this,
and have they?
They're not. Yes, so I've got video evidence here.
So I need to stop you there because this is something that I wasn't aware of. So what you're saying now is you've tried to take this information to the police, and they've said we're not taking it.
Yes, we've got video evidence for some of my colleagues have visited.
On what grounds?
The instruction was Assistant Chief Constable, and I'll not name him now, that under no circumstances have they to entertain anybody that's coming to report anything like this.
Right, now you've got that in video.
I've got the video evidence here.
Right, so that's not disputable.
Not disputable at all.
So what you're telling me here is, if anybody in Scotland, because it's Police Scotland we're talking about, go up to a police office to make any sort of complaint, however you want to word it, terminology, about COVID, the police have to say, no, we're not talking to you.
That's what we've got in video evidence.
Now, when you were speaking to them, how did they justify that?
Well, I think these guys think that when they wear that uniform, Craig...
Careful what you're saying here. I'm not asking you for your opinion, I'm asking you for how did they justify it?
Well, they can't, really, can they? Because see, at the end of the day, see where I'm coming from. See, if you swear an oath to uphold the law and serve and protect the people, clearly they're not serving and protect the people, are they?
Right, but again, that's no answering the question. My question is, how did they... You go up to that police station and you say, however you want to term it, because my terminology is different from yours. I want to make a complaint about X, Y, or Z, and it's regarding COVID. They're saying, no, we're not accepting that.
Yeah, they've been instructed.
Right, so then they tell you, we've been instructed by an assistant chief constable. Not to take any of these, and that's the conversation finished.
What they've basically suggested is that there's a COVID inquiry going on just now, and therefore they've not to be entertaining anybody that wants to come and, report any other sort of alleged crimes or whatever you want to call them.
Well, that's a good point. So the people running the COVID inquiry, have you approached them?
There's been dialogue, right? But what's happening here is, though, what if, for instance, we have got newer found evidence? So the COVID inquiry's ongoing at the moment now, but things can develop, can't they?
Yeah, so they can still take evidence.
Of course they can.
So
which they're duty bound to do.
So if you went to them with this evidence?
Well, what I've done is, as I say, that was my colleagues that come back with this video evidence of this assistant chief constable stating clearly across the board that nobody's to entertain anybody that comes with anything like this. I managed to get a proper sit down for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, where we gave them a flavour of what we are going to be doing.
I get that, right. But what I'm saying to you is, if the COVID inquiry, that's basically the police are saying to you, that's ongoing, they know. So why don't you go to the COVID inquiry with this evidence?
Well, when you report a crime, Craig, where do you go to report a crime?
I'm forgetting all that, because you've went and hit a brick wall there. Right, that's a totally different thing. What I'm saying to you is, why don't you take this to the COVID inquiry?
We believe that the COVID inquiry is just
Careful.
Aye. We believe it's just theatre playing out. That's how we see it.
Okay. Now, if that's your feeling, that the COVID inquiry is theatre being played out, and I'm not suggesting it is or it isn't, I'm just saying that's your words, not mine, and you took this evidence to them, and they rebucked you, and they ignored you, then that would give you evidence to substantiate the claim that you're making that it's a pantomime.
Because these people swear oaths as well, to serve the people. And they're not serving the people when they're not open to gather new...
You don't know, because you've not took it to them, you've not given them the opportunity to do that yet, surely.
Well, that's something that we need to discuss regarding, but there's a lack of, again, the word trust, Craig.
Well, I'm not suggesting you don't trust the police, but there's evidently things you're not happy with the police.
Absolutely,
right? You're still going to try and deal with them. But what it sounds to me as if the police are saying, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just trying to figure out in my head what they're saying. What they're saying is, there's a COVID inquiry going on now. While that's going on, we're not touching anything with COVID. I think that's a bit weird, right? Because, if that's where you want to go with a complaint, the police are basically saying they're not taking your complaint.
The shop shut.
That's a wee bit strange, right? However, what they're saying is true. There is a COVID inquiry going on just now. And the COVID inquiry are still taking evidence, because they're still questioning people, and things will come up on that, and they go, hold on a minute, let's have a look at that. I think that's where you need to go with it, because if you go with it, and they were a proper inquiry, an above board proper inquiry, then this could actually just blow the doors off it. Now, if then they were to rebut and go, well, no, we don't want to know about that, or we don't want to touch it, or we don't want to listen to it.
A fair point, actually, aye.
Then you've then got three things you're not happy with. You're then not happy with the government because of what it looks like they've done with these things. You're not happy with the police because they've told you to beat it. And then potentially, if you go to the COVID inquiry, they'll either take your evidence or not. And if you get the same half of them, then we've all got a problem. If they take your evidence, then two things can happen. They could take your evidence and do nothing with it. Or they could take your evidence and challenge people under oath with this and say, did you sign this? But the other thing is...
Good point, actually, aye.
The other thing is, I'm kind of certain that the COVID inquiry will have the contract that the British government and the Scottish government signed. So I'd be shocked if they didn't already have that information.
Well, because, like you seen earlier there, it's been put out there in the public domain.
No, that's the South Africa. I'm not talking about any of these documents.
Yeah. Oh, the UK.
They'll have the UK one.
Well, they should have.
You would kind of think so,
Well,
right?
Well, you'd like to think so.
Now, if they've got it and nobody outside that room, the closed room, know about it, you might actually put them in it a wee bit of checkmate by challenging them, because then they might be forced to bring it up.
If they've got that and it says what it says in the other ones consistently, then there's some serious questions needing asked.
I would think so. And if you're suggesting that it's a bit of a wasted inquiry, then you would maybe force their hand by saying, look, here's 3 countries, and they all say the exact same thing, and it's all the same dates, and there's the dates we know. I mean, the date that we got COVID is no, a secret. It's around about the same time, March 21, the vaccines, and you just maybe checkmate them. They would need to accept your evidence, and if you make it public that you've gave it to them, and then they do nothing about it, that's another bigger problem, isn't it?
Food for thought, I suppose. Aye.
So listen, all I can do is, thank you for sharing this information with me. I think if nothing else, this is very worthwhile. Now I know your pal Mark Sexton's got it in the public domain, but I've not seen it. So there'll be people who don't know who Mark Sexton, have they got the information, and that, giving it to me and me sharing it will not get it all around the world. But somebody might then take that information and share it with somebody and tell 10, and eventually it becomes widespread. And we can only talk to our own audience, and I'm sure we'll have. I didn't know about this, so I'm sure a lot of my audience will not be aware of these.
That was the reason why I contacted you. When I spoke to you, Holyrood, because I thought you've got quite an audience there, and as I say, and that was part of the problem where the general public, I feel, a lot of people, the politics and stuff like that, people don't know their rights, people don't know how the law actually works. It's not till you come about things like this that you realise how important it is to know these things, so you can see them for what they actually are, and do something about it, or try and do something about it. And I think, I'm quite sure the viewers will be taking on board the information we're giving them. And to me, the alarm bells are ringing all over the place here, even to people that have got no idea. I'm even at the starting point. When they digest this information we're giving them tonight, I'm quite sure there's going to be a few alarm bells going off.
Yeah, when you and I first started speaking about it and you started putting information to me, I was like, what? That can't be right.
Yes.
And as I say, I just need to reiterate, we don't know if that's what the British and the Scottish Government have signed in their contracts, but applying common sense and logic, and it would be strange for Pfizer to put these documents around 3 different...
We've got reason to believe, Craig.
Listen, and the word in it, listen, I've not looked at the other 66 pages in these documents. There might be other things that if I did have a look through them, I think, well, that's a bit weird as well.
Possibly.
But that in itself is just bonkers.
From what we've all witnessed, Craig, every night in the television, you've had your man Leach, Sturgeon herself, useless. They're all in a shot each.
The only, again, if, and it's not a big if, it's a small if, these are the same documents that we've had signed on our behalf by our Parliament. And there'll be people in those parliaments who will have read that. There will be people who have never seen that, right? So you've got to say, do you know what, see if you were an advisor or whatever, you're taking other information. Now, the other information you get might be the same, but it might not be the contract, right? But there's certain people that have been going out and telling us how to take vaccines who will know that, and if they don't know that contract, they've not actually done their duty of care.
They've done their duty of care.
So they can't win.
Which they swear an oath to do, Craig, and that's another important part of it.
Yeah, if you have read that document and had decided to ignore the content of it, then...
Because there's lives at stake.
Correct. And if you've not read the document and you've just signed it, I'm not sure what's worse.
Well, is that not what they employ lawyers today, Craig, is to go through things like that, find details so that they know exactly where they are?
100%, but you can employ a lawyer to do whatever you want. See if you sign that document. If you've signed it.
You're liable.
And if you've signed it, or if you've had sight of it, and then you've stood in a podium and tell the Scottish public, do what I'm doing. I'm going to my vaccine today because it's the safest thing for you.
Yeah, we've got it there on record. That's what they said.
Then it's frightening.
Jason Leach and Nicola Sturgeon both have got it there, video evidence. Now, Rishi Sunak's already tried to throw the medical people under the bus.
To be fair, Rishi Sunak wasn't the Prime
At the
Minister
time, Boris, aye.
So, he's no... He probably wouldn't have signed that. But the people are certainly one of the people you've mentioned. If she hasn't seen that, and it's the same document, then it'd be a bit of a worry.
Well, Sturgeon herself, she's an ex-lawyer, isn't she?
I don't know if she was any good.
Well, but she would know to go with things like that to make sure.
No, she would know who's liable. That if, and I don't know who would have signed this on behalf of UK Scottish governments, right? I don't know that, but yeah, you've got. Let's say it was a medical profession. Let's say it was somebody in the NHS. Then they're advising government. If government are not aware of it, I don't think you can claim naivety in this one at this level. Naivety is not a defence here.
Craig, the Nuremberg Code, the ignorance is no defence, neither the law. I was only doing my job, I was only following instruction. I'm afraid no. That's not how it was. This doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. And this is the same for this.
Yeah. It's not two women talking in a pub. We're talking about people in
People's
government
lives.
standing in public, telling the national newspapers, the national TV, and trying to get everybody to listen to them. We're all stuck in the house.
Yes.
This is
Every
safe.
night, Craig.
This is safe. I'm doing it.
Every night.
This is safe. This is the best thing. I think I remember Leach using words like, this is the best way of combating it.
It was, aye.
That was the sort of stuff that we were getting told. And it's frightening the life out of me that these are...
See, even more so, Craig, we all know that vaccines take a very long time to get things where you can then say this is safe and effective.
Aye, but to actually sign a document to say...
With no long-term data
don't have a
to
clue.
prove, no long-term data to prove it is safe and effective.
Aye, but the wording of that, to cut down to layman's terms, to words that I would understand, it's like, we don't have a clue if it's going to work, and we don't have a clue if it's going to harm you.
But they didn't want to say that, Craig, because they had a job to do in their eyes. They wanted to get everybody to take this, to limit the risk with something they didn't know what they're talking about. That's inexcusable, especially with their lives.
It's frightening. Well, look, Murray, I can't thank you enough for A, sharing this with me, and B, coming and speaking to me after the protest a couple of weeks ago, and C, for your time this evening, because I think this is information that the public deserves to know about.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to share on your behalf with the Scottish public. Is there anything that we've missed out that you would want to talk about?
I don't think so.
I
think I would just, an appeal to the general public in general is to please start paying attention and ask questions, and don't be putting your trust in people that, like we're highlighting here, that you're putting your trust in people here that, by the looks of things, and not just going by this here, but there's a lot of other things that we can talk about that I wouldn't be asking people like that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be putting my trust in people.
I think it's fair to say that, see, if in another 2 years or 12 months or whatever, we had another epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to term it, I certainly wouldn't be as easily led and be like, nah, not doing it. After seeing, now I'm not saying COVID didn't exist, I'm not saying the vaccines don't work, I'm saying there's a lot of things out there that we don't know about, and still to this day, you know, the amount of people falling down with illnesses. I've spoke to medical professionals who may give me more information going forward, where they are convinced that there's a lot of things happening in the world that are side effects of vaccines. So if we were to hit another pandemic, epidemic, or whatever you want to call it, going forward, I think society would be a totally different position than it was in 2020. This
is where I've got strong opinions, Craig, on where people, the general public, think they're living in a democracy. In my opinion, we're living in the illusion of a democracy. And I'll tell you the reason why, because when this alleged world emergency came about, the whole idea is to gather people of every profession, right? Professionals in every field, and they bring forth their evidence and they debate and discuss it through scientific proof, whereby you choose the best course of action to preserve human life. There was people like my colleagues who are professionals in every field were silenced and victimised and made to be deemed like blinking domestic terrorists
For what? Asking questions.
for asking or bringing forward their opinions on what was going on. Now, that's not a democracy whereby there's certain scientists and stuff are putting forward information, and other ones that are going away for the official narrative weren't allowed to speak.
Well,
and that's what was happening. I
get that. But democracy is always going to have different opinions.
Yes.
Right.
But you've got to be allowed to debate them, Craig. And
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
I think what I'm thinking of was the guy who was a Scottish lead head, probably the best brain in Scotland at the time. But because he didn't support independence, he never got near the table. And that to me beggars belief.
Well, was that not the same story with one of Nicola's sort of cohorts, the lassie that would not be allowed into the inner circle of the gold? Was it the gold? What was the name of it?
Oh, these meetings that they never kept.
Inner circle.
It was an inner cabinet that they never, Gold Command, never kept a single note.
Right. Now, there were certain individuals that weren't invited into that inner circle.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have kowtowed to, in my words, the level of untoward, we'll soften it a wee bit. There's certain people with integrity that wouldn't entertain any of this stuff that we're talking about now. And that's me being kind.
That came up for the COVID inquiry when this Gold Command thing came in, and you're like, oh great, where's the minutes for the meetings? There was none.
That's where Mr. Plausible deniability came into it. Did you see the state of him during the inquiry? The guy was stuttering. If ever you've seen a man that wasn't telling the truth, that was it.
Yeah. Right, well, look, I think what we've covered tonight has been interesting, and I would like to think it's probably not the last time we'll talk about the amount of stuff that's on the go. And, if there's anything else you want to put to the public going forward and stuff that you can, you've got verifiable proof that it's no... The easiest thing to do is if you sit and tell somebody what you think, an opinion, and you can't back it up with anything, it's the easiest thing in the world to knock you.
We've all got free wills, Craig, we've all got opinions, but what I do is, I can't afford to have an opinion. I've got
that's what I'm saying, but what you've brought tonight is not an opinion. There's fact. There's some facts. There's a line, 5.5 and 3 documents, all at the same time, the countries round about the world, and we know factually that the British and the Scottish Government have denied the public the eyes on their documents. And I don't think, and we're not saying we know what's in them, we're saying, look, here's some evidence that suggests that it's probably going to be the same. So that's a concern. It's a rightful concern, and I'm sure that going forward there'll be other topics with other things. I know there's a load of things that concern you in the world today, and I'm quite sure that it'll not be the last time we speak.
No, I'll take you up on that opportunity because I've got plenty to say.
I know you have, and if you can get hard and fast evidence, that's not debatable. Nobody can watch this tonight and say, "I don't agree with that."
No.
Because there it's there, it's in black and white. And what I'll do is I'll put these onto the screen once I'm editing it so that people can see exactly what we're talking about. Right.
Just one last thing, Craig, before we shut down, and that is that why? That's a golden question. Why would they do that? Why would they tell people every night for the last 3 years?
The thing is, we don't know, and we don't have anything that we can stack up to answer that question. So we can't go there. We can consider it.
It's a very interesting question, isn't it?
You can consider it, but I wouldn't put it in my podcast.
Yes.
Right? Because, and by the way, just because you can consider it, you might come up with the right answer. But unless we've got stuff like this that's as clear cut, there's no point in talking about it. Because all you'll get is, you'll get folk going, he talks shite.
Debate.
He talks shite because he's never backed anything up, and I'm not going to be that person, and I don't expect you to either.
I agree with you 100%.
All right, well, listen, thanks very much for your time, mate. And hopefully we can get round the table again in the future with some other stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. It's been an enthralling chat, and the stuff put in front of me is just blowing my head. So, if you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe button. As always, put your comments below because we're always good chat. And as I say at the end of all my videos, unless you are Humza Yousaf, who was the Health Secretary then, unless you are Jason Leach, who was I don't know what he was at the time, unless you are Nicola Sturgeon, and unless you're any of their SNP cult that will never see them a bad word said about them, see for everybody else in society, have a great day. Cheery bye now.